The crystal glasses clinked as my mother carefully set the dinner table, just like she did every Sunday. Bone china plates were placed perfectly, silverware aligned with military precision, and tall white candles flickered in the center. She was always obsessed with appearances. Everything had to look perfect, even if the truth underneath was far from it. That's how things worked in the Williams family. We looked perfect on the outside, polished, wealthy, respected, but beneath the surface, cracks were starting to show, and I had seen every single one of them. My name is Emily Williams, though you wouldn't know it by how my family treats me. I'm 32, and to them, I'm the disappointment, the failure, the one who turned her back on the family business, the one who chose computers as a college. They call it our skills, like it's some seamless rebellion I never grew out of. I remember when I was 19 and suggested updating our dealerships like they were accounting systems. My father laughed. My brother Marcus rolled his eyes. My mother said that this was I saw the pressure on her. I closed her eyes. Your father expects everyone here by 6, and wear something appropriate this time. I looked down at my outfit, a soft silk blouse and a tailored blazer, understated but elegant. The whole thing cost more than her dining set. Still, I knew she'd disapprove. That's just who she was, always looking for something to criticize. They still thought I worked a small tech job, something vague with apps and websites. If they only knew, if they had any idea how far ahead I actually was. While they ran 5-car dealerships and pretended to be royalty, I was building something real, something powerful. But tonight wasn't just another Sunday dinner. Tonight, things were going to change. I pulled into the driveway at 5:55 p.m. In my modest silver Volvo, nothing flashy. I parked behind Marcus's shiny black Porsche, freshly waxed and obnoxiously loud. Of course he'd bring the Porsche. He always had to make an entrance. Marcus was the golden child, the heir. The one my father proudly introduced to business partners, the one who smiled for the cameras at charity auctions. What they didn't say was that Marcus had a gambling problem and had sunk millions of company money into stupid investments. But at Sunday dinner, we all pretended not to know. The family house hadn't changed since I was a kid, a giant colonial-style mansion with white columns and shiny windows, the kind of place that screams, old money, even though our money wasn't that old. My grandfather had built the dealership from scratch. My father just inherited it and spent the rest of his life pretending we were some dynasty. You're almost late, my mother said when she opened the door. Her tone was flat, her eyes quickly scanning my clothes for something to criticize. Almost isn't late, I said, smiling tightly. I hung my coat in the hallway, ignoring her stare. How's that country club membership going? She blinked, just for a second. She didn't know I knew they'd been rejected. Again, 3 rejections in 6 months. Turns out, the world was starting to see through the Williams facade. Inside, Marcus was already at the table. His wife Jessica sat beside him, perfectly dressed as always. My father stood at the head, swirling a glass of whiskey like he was in some kind of business movie. Emily, he said with a fake smile, glad you could tear yourself away from your computers. I smiled back. If only he knew what those computers had built, what I had built. But tonight wasn't about bragging, it was about showing them the truth. Now that we're all here, my father said, setting down his drink, we need to talk about the future of the family business. I said nothing, just waited. This was the moment I had prepared for. The dealerships are growing, he continued. We're looking at acquiring 3 more locations by the end of the year. Lie. I knew it was a lie. I'd seen the bank reports, the denied loans, the unpaid suppliers. They were barely hanging on, and Marcus's gambling was pulling them down even faster. That's wonderful, dear, my mother said with a smile. She turned to me. Emily, maybe it's time you reconsidered joining the business. It's not too late to let go of your little coding project. I nodded politely and took some potatoes, even though I wasn't hungry. Jessica's hand trembled slightly as she poured herself more wine. She knew something was wrong, probably knew more than she let on. My father cleared his throat. Actually, that's what we wanted to discuss, your grandfather's trust. The one you've been using to secure business loans, I said quietly. Silence, the whole room froze. My father's face turned red. Where did you hear that? He said sharply. That's private. Like the foreclosure notice on the downtown dealership, I replied, calm as ever. Or the 3 banks that rejected your loan applications last month? Marcus dropped his fork. Dad, what is she talking about? Nothing, my father snapped. Emily has no right to dig around in things she doesn't understand. That ends now. He straightened his back, trying to sound powerful. We're cutting you off, Emily. No more trust fund, no more support. Maybe then you'll understand loyalty. My mother gasped. Jessica stared at her wine. Marcus smirked, but it looked shaky. I calmly reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. Before you make a mistake, I said, take a look at this. I opened the folder I had prepared and turned the screen toward my father. What is this? He asked. Proof, I said, proof that I own controlling shares in Williams Automotive Group. All of it. His hands shook as he took the phone. His eyes moved across the screen slowly. The color drained from his face. This can't be real. It is, I said. I started buying shares years ago through shell companies, bit by bit, and when Marcus started racking up debts, I bought even more. Jessica's head snapped up. What debts? She asked Marcus. He didn't answer. I pulled out my laptop and opened a presentation. Let me show you how the daughter you ignored built an empire while you weren't paying attention. The screen lit up with a timeline. 8 years ago, my first company, then another, then another. I clicked through the numbers, investments, IPOs, partnerships. Remember when I told you about cryptocurrency, Dad? You said it was fake, internet money. That investment turned into $180 million. Next slide, a valuation of $500 million for one of my companies. And while you were busy covering up Marcus's messes, I was building something that actually matters. You're lying, my father growled. No, I said, showing the official audit reports. These documents were reviewed by your own accountants, the ones who begged you to stop expanding and modernize the dealerships. You didn't listen. I clicked to another slide. 3 different banks, 3 failed loans, all using grandfather's trust as collateral. That's illegal, and the SEC knows it now. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus looked pale. Jessica slowly stood. I'm leaving, she said quietly, her voice shaking. I turned to Marcus. You know what else the SEC knows? About the offshore accounts, the ones in Jessica's maiden name. Jessica stared at him in shock. Marcus looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. You used me, she whispered. You used my name? I looked at my father. You tried to control me, cut me off, but you don't control anything anymore. I do. I stood, gathering my things. Oh, and Mom, the Preston Valley Country Club didn't reject you randomly. I bought the club last year, had them blacklist you. Her mouth dropped open, a wine glass tipped and spilled across the white tablecloth. As I walked toward the door, I paused. One more thing. Ask Marcus about the night grandfather changed his will, 2 days before he died. Ask about the hospital footage. They all stared at me. I smiled slightly. You wanted me to sit down, be quiet, and smile. Instead, I built an empire, and now, you get to watch it from the outside. Then I left. The turning point. I could have reported everything. The fraud, the forged documents, the money secretly moved around like a game of hide and seek. I had all the evidence ready to go, enough to ruin them forever, but I chose something different, something better. Instead of exposing them outright, I began quietly buying shares of the company. At first, it was small, just a few here and there, using shell companies and investment groups to stay hidden, but as time went on and their desperation grew, I bought more. Every time Marcus needed fast cash to cover a new gambling debt, or Mom maxed out another credit card trying to maintain her image, I stepped in, buying tiny pieces of the company at rock-bottom prices. Soon, all those little pieces added up. Marcus was the first to break the silence at the table, his voice dry and shaky. Why? He asked. Why didn't you just turn us in? I looked at each of them, my family, faces I'd known all my life but never really trusted. Because this company was grandfather's legacy, I said. He built it from the ground up. He worked hard, believed in doing things the right way. Watching you all tear it apart, I couldn't let you do how the story ended. Williams Automotive Group. The number at the bottom of the screen made my mother gasp. Is that real? My father squinted at the screen. It says over $3 billion. 3.7, I said softly, and that's just what's liquid. I haven't counted the assets still growing. Jessica stood up suddenly, pale and stunned. I need some air, she whispered. Sit down, I said, my voice firm. We're not done yet. She slowly lowered herself back into the chair. No one else dared move. Tomorrow morning, I continued, the board of directors will receive a full audit of the company's finances. I've had professionals going through the records for months. Every shady transaction, every loan backed by grandfather's trust, every fake signature, it's all there. My father looked like the air had been knocked out of him. You're restructuring? Yes, and you have two choices. I closed my laptop carefully and looked around the table. Option 1, you all resign tonight. I've already prepared the paperwork. You admit your roles in the financial mess. In return, I'll protect your reputations and make sure the company doesn't collapse. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of the old clock in the hallway. And option 2? Marcus asked, though I could already see in his eyes that he didn't really want the answer. I gave him the same cold smile my father had given me for years. Option 2, I let the SEC handle it, and they're very interested in those offshore accounts you opened, Marcus, the ones under Jessica's maiden name. Jessica gasped, spinning toward Marcus in disbelief. You used my name? It was clear she hadn't known. The betrayal hit her like a slap. You have until midnight, I said calmly, but you may want to decide sooner. There are federal agents waiting outside the downtown dealership right now. They're ready to start asking questions. My father shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You planned this? You planned tonight? No, I said, you planned it. Every time you ignored me, every time you covered for Marcus, every time you acted like appearances mattered more than truth, you were writing this ending. I just paid attention. I headed toward the door but stopped when I remembered one last thing. Oh, and Mom, I said without turning around, the Preston Valley Country Club didn't reject your application. I bought the club last year, had them blacklist you myself. Think of it as payback for all those holidays you forgot to invite me to. Behind me, I heard the soft sound of a wine glass hitting the floor and the beginning of her tears. But I wasn't done. I turned back once more, calm and certain. Before you decide, I said, locking eyes with Marcus, maybe you should explain why grandfather changed his will 2 days before he died. Tell them about the hospital conversation, about the security footage I now own. Marcus turned white. He knew what I meant. And soon, they would too. The morning after, the next day, the city woke to a clear, cold sunrise. Autumn had arrived, the kind of crisp day my grandfather used to say was made for new beginnings. I sat in his old leather chair in the office he once ruled from. It smelled faintly of his cigars and aftershave. He used to call this desk his thinking table. I could see why. At exactly 9 a.m., my assistant knocked. They're here, she said. I nodded and stood up, straightening the files before me. Send them in. My family walked in slowly, quiet, like mourners at a funeral. My father looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. My mother's usual perfect hair and makeup couldn't hide the bags under her eyes. Marcus looked exhausted and guilty. Jessica stood apart from him, and her wedding ring was missing. Sit, I said. They obeyed. Before anything else, I turned on the screen behind me. I think you should all watch this. Security footage from the night grandfather died appeared. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. There was Marcus, pacing in this very office. Our grandfather sat in this very chair, frail but firm. You can't change the will, Marcus was saying. You can't give everything to Emily. Grandfather's voice was steady. She's the only one who sees the truth. Marcus was desperate, angry. She plays with computers. I've been running the company. No, grandfather said calmly. You've been ruining it, and Emily is the only one trying to save it. And then, the unthinkable happened. Marcus grabbed grandfather's heart medication and held it out of reach. The office fell dead silent as we watched the moment again. The shock, the betrayal, the fear. Grandfather pressed the silent alarm. As security entered, he looked straight into the camera. Trust Emily, he mouthed. Then the screen went black. The air in the room was heavy. You killed him, my mother whispered to Marcus. Your own grandfather. Marcus buried his face in his hands. Jessica had scooted even farther away. I opened the first file. Let's talk about your decisions now. My father spoke, barely above a whisper. We'll sign whatever you want. I nodded. Good, because I'm not here to destroy this family, I'm here to save what's left. Over the next hour, I outlined the new future. My father would retire early and disappear from public life. My mother would step down from every board and public committee. Marcus would enter a rehab program for gambling. If he finished it, I'd give him a normal job, nothing fancy. Jessica was given a choice: leave with a generous settlement or stay with what remained. She left. As she walked out, she placed the keys to their mansion on my desk without a word. Why show us mercy? My father asked. Why not burn it all down? I pulled out an old photo, him and grandfather, standing in front of the first dealership. Because he believed in second chances, I'm honoring that. The meeting ended. They left, shattered, but still standing. My mother stopped at the door. You're just like him, she said. Your grandfather. We should have seen it sooner. I looked at her, steady. Yes, I said, you should have. Later, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Williams Automotive Group stock was rising. Tech headlines praised our new digital sales platform. The future had arrived, and I had brought it. I opened grandfather's old ledger. On the last page, he'd written, "Power isn't about controlling others, it's about controlling yourself when others give you every reason not to. You understand that? That's why you'll succeed where they failed, Grandpa." I closed the book with a small smile. I hadn't just inherited the family legacy, I had rebuilt it. And this time, I was in charge.